Hey Gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I am your host Cory, and today I have the privilege of following back up with a longtime friend of the channel, friend of the show, Mercedes Lilienthal, who recently got back among many other trips she has taken from Saudi Arabia with the Dakar Rally, however you want to emphasize that word there. But yes, she was there with Jaguar Land Rover JLR, and lots of good commentary, not only on the travel aspect of it, which is a big hit here in my household, but the vehicle side of things. So without further ado, we'll bring in Mercedes Lilienthal. So Mercedes, it seems like not that long ago, you and I were talking about a rally that you participated in, but we've got something a little bit different to talk about this time. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. So Dakar, I am very interested. I know several people who have been, who have competed. I've talked, we've got several podcast episodes about it, but I am very curious your experience, how long you were there, why you went, what you did, the whole 9 yards. We've got an hour to go through it. So I'll just kind of pitch it over to you and let you take it and run with it.
Yeah, there's a lot that happened, and maybe you can speed my voice up so I talk like this all the way through, so we can get everything in. I was there actually for a fairly short duration. I was there on behalf of Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, to document and kind of cover their three Defender teams. Their brand new Defender D7XRs. They were purposely built for the W2RC series of rallies, and Dakar was kind of the kickoff this year. They've got a 3-year term that they signed on for all the different competitions, and of course, this was the very first one. So when I flew over, I actually live in Oregon, but I was visiting family along with my husband Andy in the Midwest. So I left Minneapolis and then flew over to Saudi Arabia, where the Dakar is held. That was just after Christmas. That was before, no, actually just after New Year's, and flew over there for a total of about 2.75 days, almost 3 days, and then flew back home, back to Portland via, let's see, I think it was six flights to 5 airlines and multi-layer, layovers, and an overnight on the way back in Dubai, and you name it.
They don't make it easy, do they?
Well, when you're literally flying all the way across the globe to the other side of the world in a place like Saudi Arabia. I've never been to the Middle East before.
Mm.
So when we were flying, I was lucky enough to grab a window seat, and we're flying over Cairo, like the outskirts of Cairo in Egypt, and I'm seeing the Red Sea, and I'm seeing Mount Sinai, and I mean it was fascinating. And on the way back home, we flew over places like Iran, and it was such a different world. And I love travel, and I mean, heck, if I could do it again for even 10 minutes on the ground in the bivouac, at Dakar, I would do it again
Yeah.
in a heartbeat. It was so fascinating, not only just with the travel aspect of it, but of course the rally aspect of it. Having a chance to see the Defenders in action. There were three different teams. Two of them were Americans, actually, in one of the teams. We'll get into that in just a little bit, and to see some of the classic Dakar cars that were running in the classic series part of the Dakar, and just the bivouac and how big it is, and how it works, and just all the inner workings. It was just fascinating, and I love that stuff, especially as a competitor media person.
Right.
So
Well, just from a travel aspect, there's a joke in there somewhere about you traveling from the Midwest to the Middle East. And I just can't quite craft it. Perhaps our audience is a little wittier on that aspect than I. But and then to come all the way back to Portland, you said different airlines, multiple different airlines had to uh, get you home. Like it wasn't just
yeah. Right. You can't just, hop on Alaska Airlines
yeah.
and land in Saudi Arabia, for instance. So yeah, on the way out, it was Minneapolis to Dulles. And then I think I had about a 5 or 6 hour layover in Dulles. And then let's see, I think that was Delta. And then I went to Saudia Airlines and flew overnight to go to Saudia. And I think that total trip with those three airlines in tow was about 32 hours. If I could figure that out right
Mm,
with my navigator brain. But then on the way back home, I flew Emirates, and Emirates ended up being from, let's see, that was, oh, actually, I didn't, hang on. Let me backtrack the first set of flights. So I landed in Saudi Arabia to Riyadh, actually, via Saudi Airlines, and then Riyadh over to Alula, where stage two and stage three were happening. So that was kind of the bouncing, where I was from the Midwest, so Minneapolis, Dallas, Riyadh, over to Alula. On the way back home, we were still in Alula, and then I left, and I had to go kind of backwards to go to Dubai, UAE. So I crossed
mhm.
off two countries on my list, and I had a very quick overnight. I think I got to my hotel room once I found it in that massive, massive airport. Um, and I think I was there at like 1 in the morning
Oh
or
boy.
whatnot. And then I had to leave at like, I don't know, 5 or 6 in the morning to catch my Emirates flight. So I basically went from Alula to Dubai, had an overnight to Dubai, Dubai to San Francisco. That was via Emirates, and then San Francisco via United Airlines back over to Portland.
Wow. So, yes, you got a little time in the United Arab Emirates, but did you actually get to explore or do anything being there at 1 in the morning?
The airport's huge. And I was pumping out so much social media, videos and stories and all sorts of stuff. I was up, I think, the couple nights prior to about 3 in the morning each night while I was boots in the ground in Saudi Arabia, because I wanted to make sure to get as much content as I could out while I was there. I may have been a little bit delirious walking,
Absolutely.
from once I landed, and then I had to walk all the way back a whole nother terminal. And it was almost like Vegas in a sense, where there's so many lights and blinking things and so much activity. I'm like, this is midnight. And this airport never sleeps. Of course, it's, Dubai International Airport. Once I found my hotel room and once I got settled, I think it was maybe around 1 in the morning.
Oh
And I
boy.
still had to shower, and then I wanted to do social. And, my recap reel on my eventful arrival back home is going to be posting here in the next couple of days as I work on those.
I'm a little exhausted just listening to it. Travel days, especially travel days alone, aren't my favorite. I like being boots on ground somewhere. So we'll kind of
Right.
pivot into that with what your experience was. You were there while Andy and I were in Death Valley. So very
Oh
curious
yeah, yeah.
what the difference was like. We were cold desert. Was it cold there for you? Climate, what were you looking at there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I know that you and Andy did the Tremor. Was it an Explorer
Yes.
Tremor? I think shortly after I came back, and I had a couple days at home after my Dakar, and then I was in California right away for the Subaru, the Outback Wilderness.
Hmm.
So I was finishing up my malaria medication,
Oh
my
boy.
preventative malaria medication, while I was in California. So
Fun stuff.
Um, but but boots on the ground, it was amazing. I mean, the climate, obviously, Saudi Arabia, big desert, very, very dry. So we have a good, inkling of what the American desert is, right?
Hmm.
Or in different parts of the world, so, or Mexico or whatnot. So, very cold in the morning. So I had my hat, I've got my puffy jacket, just layers, and then kind of peel things off as you need to go. The culture over there is very, very conservative. So as a woman, I really wanted to make sure, even though I was media, it was a Western program, I really wanted to make sure to pay respects for their more conservative culture. So
Hmm.
I wore solid colors, darker colors, baggier clothes. I did have my camera, my camera equipment with me on a smaller scale level. But yeah, once we got to the bivouac, I just kind of had my layers, and it's like if I need my jacket, toss it in the back, and then I just had my phone, my little mic, obviously for interviews, and then I had my camera that was in a harness over my shoulder. So that's how I rolled, and most of the time I was fine with a longer sleeve shirt. It got a little bit warm, but of course I decided to bring black for the desert. I don't know why, but it was a nice baggy shirt that I had at the time. And yeah, and it got dusty the times that we were actually on course, the parts of the 2 days for stage two and stage three. But I live in the dust and I live in the dirt. And so I just, I loved every moment of it. And, just wear SPF 70. Just got to make sure. The sun was hot. The sun was definitely hot over there.
I live by SPF 70. I call it my liquid solar blanket. It
Yeah.
keeps me alive. And then Holly and I have a quote that we picked up on our honeymoon to Cancun. We went to um, Chichen Itza, and our tour guide kept using the phrase, "The sun is very heavy today, my family." And so whenever it's very hot outside, it's, "The sun is very heavy today, my family."
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it was it was beautiful scenery. The parts that I had a chance to see, we did have an opportunity to drive stock defenders in the desert, including myself as a woman. In stage 3, we had a chance to drive out to kind of a secret spot where they had some tents set up and stuff like that, and shoot them. Um, Let me backtrack a day. When we were there at stage 2, we got to the bivouac and we went out near to where the finish line was for stage 2. We had just missed all 3 defenders coming through. But with rally, you just never exactly know where they're at. You've got trackers on them, but you never know. There could be lag time.
Mhm.
They're fast. They may have gotten lost, or all sorts of different things. You might get stuck on the way out. I mean, you just never know. But day 3, we got really, really lucky, and we saw all 3 of them come through. Boom, boom, boom. Tight as a pack, super confident. All 6 people in total with the 3 defenders, and then we also saw some of the other vehicles. I mean, we saw some of the ultimates. We saw a couple of the side by sides in the SSV class. And right as we left, we started seeing the big T5 type trucks, like the big man trucks, just barreling their way through, which is pretty insane.
So you say you got to explore. Is this like the quintessential the dunes where you're climbing dunes and you need to have the orange flag behind you? What was the situation there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were on a fairly tight schedule. So when we drove, we had very kind of light dunes. They weren't like you would be thinking of Glamis, for instance, the
Mhm.
Rebel Rally when I'd compete with them, where the old Star Wars were filmed
Oh
down
yeah.
in Glamis near Mexico. It's nothing. I mean, they have them there, but that's not what we were driving through. What we had was more rocky sections, a little bit of sand, fairly easy driving for somebody that's more experienced. But I mean, you just put your throttle, even throttle through some of the loose bits and get your way through. But for me, I just kind of took a step back when I had the opportunity to drive both off pavement in the desert and then also on the road to get back to the bivouac as a woman because women weren't allowed to drive up until June of 2018.
Wow.
Um, so it was really quite, it just, it, I'm going to be writing about this here soon. But that was really interesting because I've never thought in a million years. I mean, you just always push boundaries. You always figure out, what to do and how, and if you fail, pick yourself up, learn from your mistakes and keep on pushing to say, okay, I really want to do this. I really want to do that. And I firmly believe that if you really want something bad enough, it'll come, it'll happen. It might be in a different form. But for me, I've always wanted to visit Saudi Arabia, the Middle East area, especially to go do Dakar. I mean, heck, if we can find a money tree, I would love to compete in the
Mhm.
classic series part of it with Andy, with because we do a lot of regularity rallies or time, speed, distance, which is what the classic series does within the Dakar rally itself. Um, but that was really interesting. And so, as I was on the pavement driving, it's kind of like Mexico. I don't, if you've driven in Mexico
Yeah.
at all, where all of a sudden you've got a lorry in front of you that is half off on the shoulder. And then there's, one guy coming straight at you, just barreling up in the middle of the road. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. They move off to the side, both lanes. And then somebody just barrels right up the center, even if it's just a non passing zone in which people were doing. So we very quickly found out that happens in Saudi Arabia, like it does
Hmm.
in Lithuania. And we saw it a bit in parts of Poland, too, when we did the Baltic Sea Circle rally with Andy. But so you watched out with that. But every um, exit of that highway had police presence. And of course, this Dakar rally, you've got a lot of police, but
Mhm.
we didn't realize that for stage 3, when I was driving, that the prince, somebody said the prince, a couple people said the prince, one person said the king was coming unexpectedly to actually visit
Oh
the
boy.
Dakar rally. So everybody was just in a, oh my gosh, we got to, do this, secure this and this, whatever. And I drive past many policemen as a woman and as a Westerner being like, hey guys. It was a really interesting mix of emotions, but I was just, it was so neat to have those types of experience. I can't stress that enough of putting yourself out there. And I flew solo all the way around the world to go do this. And did I know languages like that? No, I downloaded, Arabic, so I could talk about it offline if I needed to with Google
Mhm.
Translate, for instance. But everybody was so friendly and so accommodating, and the culture was just so wonderful, and the food was great too.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't realize it was so recent that women were granted the ability to drive there. I knew super conservative culture. I knew super limited access to various things for women there, but I didn't know 2018. That was yesterday. It feels
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it definitely, and to know, multiple women that have competed in Saudi Arabia, I mean, this year, for instance, American Sarah Price, she was the driver along with her co-driver and navigator, Sean Behrman. They were in Defender number 504. She competed in that class, and she came from the SSV world from side by sides, but
Mm,
she was one of the teams. They did really well. I mean, they won multiple stages and they ended up taking a second place finish. And
nice.
she's a Westerner, being American, but she's also driving in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so a little bit of the culture there, but so you went over with JLR and you were there covering Defender. Let's dive into what aspects you got to experience. You said you got to see at one point the entire pack come through, but what was
Yes.
that like kind of covering the event for JLR?
It was electrifying. The whole entire experience was. When we got to stage two, they had moved, I believe, from, gosh, I'm trying to think of where it was where they were, but the bivouac was just getting set up in Alula. So, a lot of it was tents still going up and things getting finalized. And when we got there, everybody was out competing. So everybody's, I don't want to say booth area, but everybody's, kind of bivouac dedicated area was pretty much empty because everybody was competing. They were rallying. When we got there, we had a chance to do several meetings with the heads, some of the engineering heads and PR heads from Defender themselves, and see the bivouac that they had. It was amazing the area that they had because they had multiple semis, multiple different vehicles. They had rooftop tents, they had RVs, and everybody and everything had a specific role. So some of these semis had differential parts. They had spare engines, they had spare, body parts. Some of these other ones had clean rooms and consumables. Some of the others even had tool chests that would make all of us drool. It's like, can I just have one, like half of a semi in our house, please? Because I would love that. They had semis that even had like a hospitality suite and a huge conference room too. That was kind of the nucleus of Defender themselves. So when the drivers had any issues with their vehicles, they could come in and talk to the engineers and multiple computer screens and a huge conference table and everything in one of them. That was really fascinating to see how an entity, and mind you, JLR, so Defender is under JLR, but Defender came up and said, okay, we want to rally these. These vehicles are based off of the stock Octa. We want to rally these. We want Defender to do this for 3 years. And the 2026 Dakar Rally was its first actual competition. There will be more this year and for the next 3 years. But to be able to do it in the limited amount of time that they did, I want to say it was under 18 months. And under 18 months to say, yes, we want to do this, work with FIA or FIA, with the actual regulatory body themselves to update the regulations for this revamped stock class that they were planning on doing. Because, it used to be the Paris Dakar Rally, right? It started in Paris and ended in Dakar, Senegal. That was in 1978, and the first rally finished in 1979. Those were mostly stock vehicles or production vehicles because that's pretty much, it was the 70s, right? That's pretty much what was there. You don't have, the ultimate vehicles or all these just insanely built and aftermarket modded like crazy vehicles. But they wanted to revamp this stock class so that Defender and even Toyota or other manufacturers could be invited to say, yes, let's do this under the stock class. So not only were they planning logistically how they were going to do this, what vehicle they were going to build their things off of, revamping the regulations along with the governing body, they were also figuring out just the teams, what it is that they needed to do, build them, test them, run them, and then, oh yeah, get there in one piece and compete. So, that in itself, just to get to the start line was just insane.
Yeah, creating something from nothing, building an entire team internally. So it's basically a stock class for these vehicles. Was Defender viewing it as a test ground, taking their brand new Octa model of the Defender? Were they viewing it as a test bed for future product? Were they? Was it more of a PR stunt for them? What feeling did you get working with them?
Definitely test bed for
Okay.
sure. They said that some of the vehicles that they're working on right now are 7 and 10 years out, and so they're using their learnings from this and incorporating them into future product for sure. So they when I was there for stage 2 and stage 3, they were having a little bit of mechanical issues, mind you. That's beginning of 13 grueling stages, so I was there pretty much right from the get go, and they were having one of the teams was having a power steering issue, so they figured out what that was. They had a little bit of suspension stuff that they needed to work on. They had just a little bit with their they had a fuel bigger, huge, I think it was 550-liter fuel tank that they had in all the vehicles. And one of the drivers, at least one of the drivers, said there's a little bit of smell of petrol. So figuring that out, tweaking that, seeing if it was a gasket, that type of stuff. So they were working and fine tuning those vehicles as they were moving along when I was there. But it was really interesting. I mean, yeah, talking to all the different heads and interviewing them and getting quotes from them. I mean, for sure, that's one of the main things that they wanted to do. And to have the Defender name, they said it's got to be tough, and we want to make sure to test these, with different aftermarket partners. Like for instance, Bilstein, they've got their suspension set up with them that they co-designed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Same with BFG, they were running their race rubber for that, and away you go. There are a lot of changes, even though it was a revamped stock class, so to speak.
Yeah. And you said they're already 7 to 8 years out in the future. So that's pretty awesome. Thinking,
Yeah, 7 to 10 years, I think, is what they said.
wow. So you and I both know the history of the brand Ineos, why they exist, and it has a lot to do with Defender and
Yes.
the founder of Ineos wanting Defender to be I'll use the word sturdier body on frame platform. He couldn't get what he wanted, so he built his own. But from your experience, from what you witnessed from all the testing out there at Dakar, um, sure, a body on frame would be tougher, but what were some learnings that you gained being an experienced rally driver and automotive journalist? What are some things that you picked up on from the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all three teams. So let me just list them here so that there's a whole. They're all from all throughout the world, including two Americans that I mentioned, Sarah and Sean. The other ones, there was a Lithuanian, a young Lithuanian. He ended up winning the whole entire class, the whole revamped stock class. His name is Rakas, and his last name, I hope I don't butcher it, Bachutska, I believe. He's
Okay.
26 years old, born in 1999, along with his co-driver, who's from Spain. His co-driver's name is Oriol Vidal. They were in number 502. They took first place after all the 13 stages got done. Then also there was a French duo, with Mr. Dakar himself, Stefan Peterhensel, and car number 500, along with his French co-driver, Micah Mitke. And they placed fourth in the stock class. The reason why I'm saying all of them and their names individually is because they all have a storied history when it comes to either
Mhm.
Dakar Rally or other different rallies, but they all came from different classes. So that was really interesting, whether it was motorcycles, whether it was side by sides, whether it was ultimates or the big man truck type of vehicles like the T5s that I think they just call trucks nowadays. What was interesting for me is, and coming from a competitive side, more on the regulatory, so not where speed is the number one thing, whereas the Dakar Rally and Defender, the speed and efficiency was number one. Coming from myself, where I compete, it is time, speed, distance. So it's all about accuracy. You can't be too fast. You can't be too slow. You have to be perfectly en route. So that's a bit different. But all of these guys came and gals came from a different walk of life, and they hopped in and they just took off with the Defenders like they were there for the whole entire time. And they had very limited testing. They did so well, and they had completely different worlds of training and racing history, and they just did great. They were just in it and in it to win it. And first, second, fourth in the stock class, you can't complain. With Defender coming up and essentially dominating.
Yeah, so surely the brand very pleased to come back home with two podium finishes and a near podium finish there
Yes.
with Mr. Dekar himself. Uh, a lot of learnings there, but yeah, one thing I know here at GT Garage Talk we talk about a lot is the ability just to get in a vehicle and feel at home, feel
Yes.
like you know where everything is and how to operate it to its fullest. That is only amplified more in a grueling rally like this, where you need to know that it works as intended, and these vehicles being modified slightly. Uh, there's just a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So the fact that Defender started this up from nothing, did not have a working team process in place, found these drivers, and then to finish like they did speaks a lot, I would say, to the durability of their vehicles.
It does. It definitely does. And I mean, I think that was the biggest thing for myself just to see in person. Like I said, we missed them just narrowly on stage two, but to see them, come through so confidently where we were in stage three. I mean, gosh, if I had my way, I'd be in a helicopter following them the whole entire stage, the whole entire rally. But that's a whole nother thing. I'd love to go back to see them and the other teams compete next year and do the whole entire duration. There's such a story to tell. And even though I was there for a limited amount of time for those two stages, I'm writing tons of articles, podcasts, radio, all sorts of stuff. And I think I've got, I don't know, 250, almost 300 different social media videos and photos and things that I've shared from my very short time there, because it's such an expansive story and so many different sidestep stories that are in it, about the vehicle, about the teams, about, the Dakar Classic people, about the culture, about the terrain. There's just so much to talk about. And stock class teams, they can't change production specific key items like the engine per se, the gearbox, differential housings, or the external body, for instance. But they can improve on other parts within the regulations. Again, the revamped regulations that are updated to make them rally ready. This includes like a wide variety of different upgrades, for instance, they had the same stock differential housings, but they were able to update the internals. They switched the OEM fuel tank, which I think was a 90-liter fuel tank for the Octa, that you and I can buy off the showroom floor if we wanted to. And they made a bespoke 550-liter fuel tank. They had the same 8-speed automatic gearbox, for instance, as a production Octa, but I think it had a lower final drive ratio. All sorts of different things. I mean, they have a wider track width, and bigger fender flares. They had their increased their tire size. I think they went up to a 35-inch tire size with the 17-inch rim, so that they had a nice beefy sidewall to help protect them from trail hazards, sand hazards, rock, all that type of stuff. They did suffer punctures, but they carry 3 full-size spares with them. And so the rear suspension, for instance, had to be beefed up. And so they did that, but they had to still use the stock mounting points. So I can go on, and there's a whole bunch of interior bits too that got upgraded, but they still worked with FIA, with FIA, to be able to keep, what these regulations are. And they built everything while they were planning and updating this. And same with Toyota. Toyota had, I think, 2 different vehicles there, also competing in the stock class, the revamped stock class. And there were a couple of privateers too. I think they were all piloting Nissan Patrols.
My goodness. So, yeah, lots to see, lots to do. I know how hard you work. I've known you for a long time, and just to keep up with you is somewhat exhausting just because of how much you do. And to see everything that you were able to bring out of there for essentially being there for 2 days, and just to be like a sponge taking in new environment, new culture, new event for you that you'd never been to, and
Yeah.
to just kind of be thrown into it. If I remember, when you got there, you were kind of up in the air as to what you could do. It was kind of a weird day for you, the day that you arrived.
Yeah, so I actually arrived that previous night, like in the middle of the night. And you notice a theme here? You're like, oh,
Yes.
you arrive and it's like 1 in the morning or something. But after my 32-hour marathon, and again, this girl and this energy is only decaf coffee. So not by choice, but you can sleep when you're dead.
Yes.
But anyways, when I arrived, it was the night before. But I actually just briefly met 2 American women, a mother-daughter, who was on the same flight, and they ended up staying at the same area that we were. And I saw them at breakfast the next morning. And as I was just ready to sit down, they said, "Hey, come on over, sit with us, and have a nice breakfast." And that was before I had any itinerary. I didn't know what I was doing for that day. I had messaged a couple people, and they ended up saying, "Oh, well, we don't have anything for you today." So I wasn't able to get to Dakar or get credentials to go in my first full day that I was there. So they said, "Well, enjoy the setting, enjoy your." It was a villa, a small building that I was in. Enjoy the grounds. Okay, so I had a free day. And then we just hit it off, and it was mother Nancy and daughter Alyssa, and they were world travelers. She's a luxury travel agent, and Nancy, for instance, the mother was over, I think, 120 or 125 countries, and they just came from Egypt. And I mean, they're fascinating people. They were from the LA area. Long
Oh.
story short, they said, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I said, oddly enough, I have a free day. And it's so rare to have, as you know, with programs,
Mhm.
being a journalist yourself, and with Holly, that you might have a couple hours if you're able to, not a full entire day, especially in a different country you've never been to. Well, I said, come with us. Why don't, we've got a couple things toured. We wanted to go, or planned for tour. We wanted to go to Hegra, which is where the Nepenthian people have their tombs and where they lived, and all these carvings, these intricate tombs, and landscape areas that were not too far away, as well as Moriah, which is the largest mirrored building in the world. And then they wanted to go up to Harat Viewpoint, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, if it's Harat or Harat. But it's a viewpoint that you go drive all the way up to, and you can see all of Alula and tons of date farms and the old ruins of the old area, the old section of the city and whatnot. And we did all of that together. And they're like my new besties. It's just amazing. We're already planning the next time we can see each other halfway through from Portland to LA.
Wow. So I bet without bumping into them, without that, knowing you, knowing your work ethic, that day would have been torture. It sort of would have been to me. I'm like, I need to be making money. I need to be making content because
Yeah.
the next 2 days for you was like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, for me, I loved absolutely every second of it. I mean, do you know exactly what part you're going to be doing every single day? No. You have maybe a high level if you're lucky, no matter what program it may be, or you may have some that are more detailed than others. But the biggest thing is, like I was saying earlier, is putting yourself out there, and just being confident and saying, okay, and a smile goes a really long way if you don't know where you're at, or if you need help or something like that. No matter what culture, what language, what whatever, if you smile, you can make it work. And it was just great. And so for me, I just rolled with it. I kept on saying, be flexible, just, be patient and smiley, even though you're tired and you don't know the last time you slept, which I run on sometimes. I mean, you know me, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm always on. It's like it's game on time, it's game on time, and sleep you can do later. But stay focused and just be flexible. And it worked out really great.
Wow. Any other thoughts that you want to share from this trip? I mean, we've done world travel, we've done free days, we've done the fact that they placed on the podium. Like, we got a lot of stuff, but is there something I'm missing here?
Gosh, you know, Dakar is such a storied competition. It's one of the most grueling competitions in the world for motorsports, in my opinion. Um, to see the teams, to see the defender teams out there just slaying it and just killing it. They were all three of them, actually, all three drivers and all three teams were stage winners by the time I even got there, after stage three. And for stage, I think it was stage two and stage three, they were running one, two, and three.
Wow.
So if you let that sink in, I think they won 10 out of 13 total stages. And they were rotating as to who was winning, right? Whether it was Sarah, whether it was Ruckus, or whether it was Stefan. It just that that says so much about the vehicle, the toughness of the vehicle, how it was built. That it's built off of literally a stock Octa that you and I can go buy from the showroom floor. And some of the stories, I love to recall this one. They were saying that they had some of these little bespoke items, like bolts, or where they had welded nuts or things, for switching out race seats and whatnot. That they tricked the robots that were building this down the assembly line, were building these chassis and whatnot. They just kind of put the part in right away, and then the robot didn't know that it was different, and then it just grabbed it and put it in, and this and that, and went off the same assembly line.
Wow.
So, and there were tons of people that came together. They were so excited once Defender announced this internally, that there were engineers working on the weekends, that there were people that were like, yes, I want to help. What can I do? What can I do? And to have that energy and to have that enthusiasm, that's so huge to see it on a macro scale when Andy and I compete as husband and wife duo. with different regularity rallies. Mind you, ours is precision based, not how fast you can go to the finish line, but we get it. We understand it. It's like, building up the vehicles, whether we have built ours up ourselves, for instance, with 2022, we built up the Subaru, and when we partnered with Subaru, then we ended up running with Ineos, actually with Ineos Grenadier, and we won our first class with the Alcan 5000 in 2024 in the winter in the Arctic. Then we partnered with Honda. We had a bone stock Honda that had some accessories on it, but then we ran some prototype equipment from Rally Innovations and Baja Designs. And so as we evolve, we see the inner workings of the backside of it. So not only as a competitor, but then media while you're competing to cover it. And for me, that's like my adrenaline. So to be there at that opportunity, I am thankful for JLR for the invite, just to say, hey, let's have you over there. Let's do the experience, cover the teams, and I'm still writing about it. I mean, heck, I'm still doing social media via Crankshaft Culture on it. I'm finally to the point where I'm flying to, or I will be flying to Dubai, but so many people just wanted to know that the whole travel log part of it,
Hmm.
in addition to all the competition part of it. So I am doing my due diligence and doing the best I can, putting it all out there. So for people that might not be able to have the opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia, they can get the behind the scenes look of at least my experience being there.
Yeah. So I noticed right after you got back, yes, you did head south into California for a Subaru event, and you literally just got back from another event prior to us recording this. What is next on your oh so busy calendar that you can
Oh
talk about
gosh.
at least?
Right, right. Yeah, well said, that I can talk about. So there are a couple of things that I can talk about. I mean, Andy and I just got back from Canada yesterday. I think last night or sometime before dinner, we did the Thunderbird Rally, which is also another regularity rally at or below public speeds on different trails. A lot of it was off pavement, so that was really interesting. It was like tons of ice, tons of rain, tons of mud. There's hardly any snow. It's basically a snow rally, and it's a very quick paced rally. But again, it's at or below public speed limits because they're all public roads. So just got back with that. And we will be competing together. I can't speak of our partners or the vehicle yet, but we in July will be doing the car rally, which is a brand new rally. And that is the Colorado Adventure Rally. And then we are also planning on doing the Alcan 5000 this year, which is another summer rally. And I can't talk more about that either yet.
Okay, very intrigued there. I'm sure you and I will cross paths at some point eventually, very soon. As we joked earlier, Andy and I were in Death Valley right around the time you were on your way back from Saudi Arabia. So
Yes.
I am very grateful that our paths are crossing more and more here lately.
Yeah, likewise. And it's funny, we jokingly say with you, with Brian Dorr, who you know as well,
Hmm.
and with other people, Brian and us, for instance, we live in the same city. We live in Portland. We never see him in Portland. If we see him or if we see you, it's somewhere way far flung location, testing this vehicle or that vehicle or whatnot. So, you never know if it's track time or if it's dirt time or just a tour of a manufacturer's facility. I mean, you never know where we pop up, and it's same with you guys too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I thought it was funny. The first time I actually met Andy in person, we'd already talked, I don't know how many times on the podcast, but was actually, for all intents and purposes, in my backyard over in Fort Worth with the new Tahoe and Suburban. So
oh yeah,
you and
that's
I
right.
just briefly crossed paths there, but then he and I were drive partners on Kia Sportage, and then he and I rode back from Death Valley together to the Vegas airport here recently. So you never know. It's
Yeah,
our
no, gosh, I didn't realize that was where you guys first met each other in
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You just never know. And the programs fly so fast, usually, that you're like, hi, bye.
Yes.
If you're lucky, you could be drive partners where you can spend the day together. But, you're also still working, whether you're taking video or Andy's
Yeah.
taking photographs or, writing notes down as to, the good, the not so good, and the challenging parts of whatever brand new vehicle that we're testing in whatever variety. There's always something different. And I think that's what I love about it, because I never know necessarily what I'm doing next month or maybe next Monday or something like that. But Andy and I work for ourselves, and we've got our own entity, Crankshaft Culture, in addition to all the magazines that we write for. We're both staffers at OVR magazine. We're the features editors there, but so there's always stuff coming in down the pipeline. If we're not competing ourselves and creating that for ourselves, there's always different drive programs or different events or testing aftermarket gear, camping stuff. I mean, heck, you
Mhm.
pretty much know us well enough to know all the stuff that we do.
Yeah. I laugh because just, let's see, an hour and 27 minutes ago, according to YouTube Studio, my video on the Ford Explorer trimmer went up. I intentionally delayed mine past the embargo lift, and I did actually get some footage of Andy tackling some obstacles there in my video. So
Nice.
you might want to go check that out. Somewhere
Yeah, I was gonna
midway
say
through the video, he's in there. I even call him out. I'm like, no pressure, Andy. Just filming you do these obstacles. So
and it's awesome. Yeah, he's a pretty good Vanna. I jokingly say, he's the Vanna of us because he's so good on camera. I mean, he had to be. He when we first moved here to Oregon from the Midwest in 2006, he got a job with Warren Industries, and
mhm,
I'm sure you're pretty familiar with Warren Industries, the truck winch company with aftermarket parts, bumpers and hubs and all sorts of stuff. And so very early on, I think I remember one of his first trips as the media guy and the PR guy was at SEMA.
yeah.
And then the crew came up to him and said, "All right, media's here." And Andy's like, "Okay." He's like, "That means you." And so people were there with video cameras, the professional media for whatever TV show or whatever YouTube huge channel or something. And he's like, "And I gotta go now." Like, he's got to be on. And so that's how he started. It was way back when. And so he does a great job in camera. I'm trying to get a bit better, in front of camera. If you notice this, my whole Dakar coverage, I've been, again, pushing boundaries,
Mhm.
seeing what sticks, seeing what works, just as you guys know, and always evolve. So
Yeah. Well, as always, Mercedes, it was great talking with you. I'm sure with many of the events that you listed coming up very soon, that this will not be the last time we talk here on the podcast. This is really just becoming the Lilienthal Fornicate podcast, and I'm okay with that because
yeah,
y'all stay
hey, I like
active
it.
enough. It allows me to keep up with y'all, and it keeps our audience engaged into not just new cars, which we cover here at the main channel so frequently, but what's going on in the industry at large, which was always my goal for this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we love it. I mean, heck, you never know. Maybe we could co-podcast together or something. I mean, like the ring of that. But for us, we have our hands in so many different things. And I mean, yes, we test a lot of new cars, but we love building them up and seeing their capability and whether, like for instance, we partnered with Subaru this last year and we took a modified. They built it under our direction with all these different specific parts, aftermarket things, and we lived out of it and with a rooftop tent, and we did the whole entire Transamerica Trail. That took us 29 days and over 7,000 miles, with over 3,000 of it being off pavement and a whole variety of things. What were the challenges? What is a vehicle capable of? What could it not do? All these types of things. And so for us, there's such a world of just, of different things that you could do. I think time, speed, distance rally for us, like, the regularity rallies or TSD rallies that you might hear in North America and throughout the world, you could take pretty much any car. I mean, heck, our Pajero that we have sitting outside the other side of my wall here, we bought for a little over $4,000 from Texas, mind you. We did a flying by and we drove it all the way back. There's our second Texas Pajero flying by, oddly enough. But then we purpose built it for the Alcan 5000 in the winter for 2020. And we did it. And mind you, it's a right-hand drive diesel, four-wheel drive diesel.
Yeah.
Did we know what the heck we were doing? Kind of, because we had another Pajero ahead of that. But we purposely built that for it. And Andy, God, he spent like 6 months rebuilding the whole entire front suspension and all sorts of stuff. And we had a Webasto Thermotop Evo engine coolant heater in it. We had all sorts of other things. Brand new tires at that time. We decided to do winter specific studded tires and all sorts of different things. But it wasn't a ton of money, right? You could buy a car that's like $3,000 or 2,000 bucks and just run what you brung essentially
Right.
for some of these competitions. And what's a better way than to marry seeing different things, being with like-minded gearheads, being out there and being together and being in your car and seeing what the capability can be, and then the challenge of it all.
Yeah.
For me, that's why we loved rallies so much, and that's why Dakar folds into this mix and is such a master scale because it's the pinnacle. It's literally the pinnacle in the world.
Yeah, and it seems like everybody knows that name. Like Rebel, in its 10 years, has made quite the name for itself. But Dakar really does it, like you say, it's the pinnacle. It's the crown jewel of the rally world. So lots to
Yeah,
talk about there.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, and to add to that too, the Alcan 5000 rally, they've started in 1984.
Wow,
So
40
think
years.
about that.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, and it's like the every other year. So, they have the winter and then they have the summer and then winter and then summer and it's usually all the way up to the Arctic, in different parts of Canada, and Alaska and the routes vary, but that one's also a very long-standing one. But there's so many different ones across the world.
yeah. Well, Mercedes, I will put links to all of your stuff, your coverage down in the show notes down below. But just for those who never click down there, what are the best ways people can find you and some of your coverage?
The best way, singularly, would be via Crankshaft Culture. Crankshaft Culture is Andy and my own entity and brand where we believe that every vehicle is an adventure and that we're all united by horsepower.
Mm.
Because we love every type of car because we love every type of wheeled machine, so to speak, whether it's an EV, a drifter, a classic, a 4-wheel drive, or lowered import. That's probably the best way. We're on all the social media channels, so you can see my Dakar coverage on Instagram. I've got, gosh, I don't even know, 3 different saved highlights bubbles with up to 300 videos and photos or something. Last I counted, who's counting? But then we also have some YouTube. We've got Facebook. We've got Blue Sky. We've got LinkedIn that we post regularly, and then also via myself too. If you Google my name, then you can go ahead and just put that in, excuse me, and then put in Dakar Rally 2026. I'm sure there's probably a lot of stuff that'll pop up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining and just sharing your entire experience from travel to coverage on the PR side to everything from the Dakar. And look forward to hearing again from you again very soon.
Yeah, that sounds great, Cory. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Bye. Well, there you have it, Gearheads. Hey, another fun discussion about, you guessed it, rallies with Mercedes Lilienthal. I really, really, really want to experience that for myself at some point in my lifetime. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot of travel. As always, you can follow along with us, GT Garage Talk, or gtgaragetalk.com. Until next time, Gearheads. Bye.